North Korea. This podcast is about how power really works in Pyongyang, Washington, and beyond. Welcome back to The Defector. Today, we are joined by a man who truly sits at the intersection of intelligence, economics, and history. Professor William Brown spent over 30 years at the very heart of the U.S. intelligence community, serving as the senior analyst and advisor for the CIA, the National Intelligence Council, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. When the U.S. government needs to understand how money, power, and weapons flow through North Korea, Professor Brown is the expert they call. Beyond his intelligence career, Professor Brown is a distinguished educator who has taught at many of the world's leading institutions for international affairs, such as Georgetown University, George Washington, George Mason, and University of Maryland. But what really makes Professor Brown unique isn't just his clearance or his data, it is his connection. We will deep dive into this. Professor Brown, it's truly an honor to have you on the show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this discussion. Yes.
Yep. Professor, you have a background unlike almost any DC analyst. You were raised in Gwangju, South Korea by missionary parents. I still cannot forget the photos you showed me of your parents in Pyongyang in the early 1900s. They are historical witness to why Pyongyang was once called Jerusalem of the East. How does that deep personal connection to both Korean people shape how you interpret dry economic data than others might miss?
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody has their own story, right? Especially people who work on North Korea. You certainly have one of the best stories. I could hardly ever compete with you. But
I know.
mine is kind of interesting. It's nothing I did, but my
Mhm.
four grandparents, both
Mhm.
families, they were all missionaries in China, Presbyterian missionaries,
Mhm.
Changnokyo, in China and in Korea.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
my favorite story, my mother was born in Korea, Kunsan, Korea. My dad was born in Suzhou, China. And they met each
Wow.
other. This is my favorite story. They met each other in Pyongyang in
And that's an incredible story. Yeah.
1927, 28. You know, there's a big American high school there in Pyongyang in those days,
hmm
just during the Japanese era.
hmm
That's how I came to be. Pyongyang led the way, I guess. Yeah.
hmm Wow.
And then I grew up. I lived in Gwangju. They were missionaries in Gwangju, Honan province.
hmm
They took me there in 1954. You're supposed to say you're not that old, are you? But I was 2 years old. They
uh-huh.
took me to Japan when I was 1 year old, and then Korea when I was Gwangju when I was 2. And I grew up there. I lived there 15 years until I
hmm
came back here to college. And then I worked in the government on China and Korea as an economist for most of my career. So yeah,
hmm
I'm kind of deeply intrigued by Korea and China and what's been going on there. I like
hmm
to say though that I'm kind of in fact, I've written a memoir. I'm writing
hmm
a memoir. It's sort of like a foreigner looking in. As a missionary kid, I'm not trying to be a Korean. We weren't trying to be Korean. That wasn't the idea.
Uh-huh.
We weren't trying to make Koreans into Americans. It's not like an immigration thing. It's like a
hmm
guest. We were guests of Korea. And so I learned to be, I think, a good guest in Korea. And I've learned a great deal, I think, about Korea as a result.
So you already completed your memoir. It's been out?
No, it's maybe 80% done.
Great.
I have a company in Georgetown that's helping me.
Oh,
Now, you publish on demand, so it's much easier.
I see.
And hopefully
That's great.
Hopefully by the summer, I'll have this thing finished.
Are you going to include all the photos, like early
Yeah,
1900
yeah.
photos
A
in the book?
lot of photos.
That would be amazing.
That's
The people should see the pictures how Pyongyang was, really were
yeah.
Christianity
So I
in
have a great
back to
picture
then.
of my mother as throwing a snowball
Mm-hmm.
against her older brother in
Mm-hmm.
exactly where Kim Il Sung's palace is now in Pyongyang. Exactly that
Wow,
location. It's a really funny picture.
it's a good location. Probably good.
Yeah,
That's why they built the palace there.
yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
I see. Um, Thank you for sharing the story, and please share the book with us. And then, I hope our audience and global community can actually read your book and see the incredible photos you will share
Yeah.
with them. Yeah, and I will have more the technical question here.
Mm-hmm.
As a former senior advisor to the national intelligence, manager, how does the way the intelligence community analyze the North Korean economy differ from how academia or the media does it? Or what is the one indicator you look at that everyone else seems to ignore?
Yeah, well, I haven't been haven't had clearances now for 5, 6, 7 years. So,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and of course, I couldn't discuss in secrets anyway. But
yep.
the even with the secrets, my main focus has been for years and years looking at specific live indicators. By
Uh-huh.
live indicators, there are two main
Mm-hmm,
ones. One is the exchange rate,
mm-hmm,
$1 exchange rate, but also
mm-hmm,
1 yuan, all the exchange rates.
mm,
I look at those exchange rates because those are very specific, market-based. There are a couple different sources for it.
mm-hmm,
Daily NK does a good job, and Asia
mm-hmm.
Press over in Japan does a good job. You
Yep.
always, in Intel, you always want to have two sources, right?
Mm,
Never want to depend on just one source. And
I see.
they sort of are rivals. They fight each other. That's good, And usually they're pretty good. Sometimes they're wrong. They're different. But I
Oh,
even
sometimes they're different.
yeah, like
Sometimes they're
October, they got quite different. Got the
Oh.
big spread. So I asked each of them, "What's going on?" And they each blame the other. Oh, they messed up. They messed up. And now they're back together again, kind of.
I
But
see.
that competition for the data, it's easy data if you think about it. It's not hard to collect exchange rate data
Mm-hmm.
if you have a source in North Korea. So
Mm-hmm.
that's long been one of my main targets. The other one is trade,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned this way back when I first was working on China's economy at
Mm-hmm.
CIA in the 1970s, 76. I started there.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it's hard to imagine. China produced no data whatsoever. It was
Yep.
darker than North Korea is now, much darker. And we didn't even trade with China. We weren't allowed to trade. So there's no data.
Mm-hmm.
But we developed not me, but my partners,
Mm-hmm.
I worked for them, developed a system where we could look at everybody else's trade with China. And so British exports to China were Chinese imports from Britain. We
Mm-hmm.
mirror imaged the data and put them all together in a nice compendium and sort of produced China's trade data from a mirror image perspective. And from that, you can sort of draw implications for their balance of payments and for
I
the
see.
exchange rate and the GDP, and it all goes on like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look at North Korea today. I look
Oh.
at their trade data from an opposite point of view. The main one, of course, is China. So China now publishes great data, a lot
Yep.
of data, not great data, but a lot of data, very timely. This is what, February 16th today?
Mm-hmm. February
I
16th.
think in about a week, they'll publish their data for January trade, their exports to everybody at very detailed level, 8-digit level,
Mm-hmm.
by money and by pounds, how much it weighs and what port it goes through, all kinds of stuff. And of course, you can look at that on their website and get their trade with North Korea for all of
I
these
see.
items. So I look at, but and in a few days we'll get that for January. So quick, right? We're just still in February.
So I always wondered how, you know, the North Korea, because North Korea haven't published any data for a long time,
Right.
and then how China get the economy or trade data, and that was my long time question. And when I was in China, I had a chance to engage with Chinese the Commerce Bureau,
Yeah.
and then they told me, and then many also regional the traders told me that even though Chinese government official data hasn't included the smuggling data,
Yeah.
so it could be doubled, or it could be like 1/3 are missing
Yeah.
in this data. They told me
Yeah.
so, and I was so surprised at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite true. The data is, you get what you get. I always
Hmm.
sort of look at it as a couple of different ways. One is China is a bureaucracy,
Hmm.
and would take a lot of guts for a customs official to
Hmm.
change the data.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's if they
Wow.
catch him, they'll put him in jail.
Hmm.
So at a micro level, I think they're probably reasonably accurate.
Hmm.
But there's no question there's a lot of trade that goes on that's not counted.
Hmm.
So I take the perspective that what is there is probably pretty much right. What we don't know is what they don't put in, which is probably a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to sort of shade that. The fact of the matter is I worked at our Commerce Department. And,
Mhm.
our data is not that great. Imagine our trade with
I see.
Mexico, right? We can't even count
Uh-huh.
people going back and forth. How do we
That's
trade?
correct. Yeah.
People going stuff. So
Yeah.
trade data is never as accurate as one.
I see.
But with those two line items,
Mhm.
exchange rate and trade data, imports and exports, a certain amount of commodities, and within the price data, some prices of rice versus corn, I think is an
Mhm.
important one in North Korea.
Mhm.
You can sort of start developing an idea of what's
Mhm.
going on. Now, in
I
the
see.
intelligence business, though, that's what I do now, right?
Mhm.
In the intelligence business, it's kind of trouble, to be honest.
Mhm.
They get so much, um, maybe information,
Mhm.
but it's not aggregated. It's like little bits of information.
Mhm.
And I think in a way it's sort of distracting. For example, you get pictures, imagery. Everybody knows they take a lot of imagery of North Korean factories.
Yep.
So you can
Yep.
spend all day long looking at a factory.
Mhm.
Well, and there are 1,000 factories, 456 factories, whatever. You
Yep.
spend all your time trying to figure out what's going where, and that's useful, especially in the military area. But I think
Yep.
there's a lot of distraction, and I think their limits are they have a hard time putting it all together in a
Mhm.
macroeconomic sense.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. There was limitation, and especially you cannot track all the, trading, logistics. So they won't have more accurate data on trade and economics. I think, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Mm.
So we've seen reports of the North Korean won skyrocketing sixfold recently. Is this a sign of regime losing control or a failed policy experiment? What does this tell us about the stability of markets right now? Especially when we look at the Iran situation where, hyperinflation and skyrocketing exchange rate escalated into violent, protests.
Yeah, and you could add Venezuela to that too. And
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
the socialist communist countries
Mhm.
always end, right? Except North
Yeah,
Korea. But they end. Why
such
do
a
they
case,
end?
yes.
They end because of inflation.
Hmm.
Inflation eventually kills them. And there's a
Hmm.
good reason for that. Socialism, in its ideological pure form,
Hmm.
doesn't allow the use of money.
Hmm.
It's an astonishing system that Marx, Lenin created in Soviet Union. No
Yeah.
money. And it was idealist, Money creates, rich get richer, poor gets poor, and money creates that, right? Very idealistic kind of thought. But it's frankly, I'm not going to say stupid, but it doesn't work. Instead of money, they use rations and a ration ticket. So they'd have prices and money, but it's not really money. So if you want to take a train ride from Pyongyang to Hamhung, you get a ticket. It might cost 5 won, nothing, 5 cents.
Yeah.
But that's not the constraint. The constraint is permission, passion, the ability to take the train. If you get that train ticket, you can go. No matter, the money doesn't matter. So for years and years, they produced incredible amounts of won money, little pieces of money. It really, frankly, was
Just
worthless.
papers, yeah.
The paper was, you could use the paper for better reasons, right? But then the ration system broke down, in the famine era, mainly because the state couldn't pull in enough food to eat. So people started using money. And at first they started using the little won notes, but there were too many of them. So there's this huge inflation. And then Kim Jong-il tried to stop that. And he knocked off a couple zeros. And that was a disaster because people said, "Oh, you're stealing our money." And they were.
Absolutely. It was a disaster in 2009. Yeah.
So I think Kim Jong-un was waiting. He was like, he wasn't king yet, but he was like waiting. He was the prince in waiting, right? And he noticed that, I think, and he took some good lessons from it. We can't have, because there are people in the streets, so we can't have that kind of inflation. And then 2015, he put out some strict rules on creating more money, making too much money. And he actually did a great job. I wrote extensively about it for about 10 years. His first 10 years, inflation was flat. Won was flat at about 8,000 won, keeping stability. Good. He did that by squeezing the government. Good.
I see.
So I was pleasantly surprised. But of course, if in your government you're getting squeezed, you don't like that. The military doesn't like that. Nobody likes that. And then about 2019, after the summits with Trump, suddenly it broke loose and they started printing more money. So what's happened in the last, 5-6 years is the won, actually in the last 1 year, the won has gone from like 8,000 won per US dollar to 30, today it's 35,000, 4 times. It went up higher and then it came down a little bit. It seems to have stabilized a little bit in the last couple of months, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you're right. When I left North Korea, the exchange rate was $1 per like 8,000 won in North Korean currency. Now, so you mentioned the 35,000, and I heard 2 weeks ago it went up to 50,000, and then down like a 40 something. The region, the 40 something. So. You're right. When we were in North Korea, we couldn't say about the profit. It is, strictly prohibited to mention about profit because it's related to market economy and capitalism. And then ration. I still remember we got the tickets, and then we went to grocery stores, and we got the soybean sauce and soybean paste, and then
food stamps. Yeah, right.
Yeah, food stamps. And then it was really broken after early 1990s, and everybody stopped getting rations there, and then everybody is struggling. So that's why we had a famine, and later people independently developed a market we call the Changmadang, right? So next question is, you've been often discussed the tension between the state playing the economy and the Changmadang internal market. And in 2026, does Kim Jong-un see the markets as a necessary evil for survival, or is he actively trying to strangle the merchant class to regain absolute socialist control?
I don't know, of course, we don't know, but I'm thinking most people in North Korea have given up on the ration system. It's just broke. They look at what happened in Soviet Union and in China. They've thrown everywhere. They've thrown. Even Cuba is more market than North Korea, and I think and a good indicator of that for all these years where there's been this inflation, huge inflation. They've tried to hold the line on state salaries, state enterprise people and ministry people and policemen and teachers. It's probably about a half the non-farming population work directly for the state. And they've been given very low wages, but then they get the ration. So they're still in the socialist system. But if you're outside of that system, you trade and you make money and you make typically 10 times more money than a state person. So a teacher would get maybe 4,000 won per month, and her sister working in a wig factory would get 40,000 won, 10 times more. Well, that doesn't seem fair, does it? Well, the sister gets, but they make arrangements, so the sister lives in the free housing with, they make all this, or they corrupt the officials. Everything starts getting corrupted. And but they couldn't raise the wages of the state enterprises, of the state people. I think it came to a head last year, and suddenly they raised the wages of teachers 10 times. Well, wouldn't you be happy if you got a 10-time wage increase? Well, if it's from $1 to $10 a month, it's not a big deal, right?
No, living costs also increased, and inflation.
That just spurred this huge inflation, which they're facing now. And I think it's killing their state budget. They don't talk about their budget, but a 10 times increase in state salaries, 10 times, it's got to hurt their budget. So I think it's all out of control at this point, and they're pretty much caving into the market, and they're allowing even their state wages to rise sharply.
Wow. So going back to the currency reform in 2009, it's the same. Kim Jong-un was trying to increase the salary of soldiers and officers, and government has no money. So, he gave his father idea that we have to collect all the money from the people. And that's how currency reform started. And eventually it failed, and then he executed his top economy advisor, Kim Gi-nam. Was it terrible? People at the time was very furious. Like people are burning the money on the street and then throw money. But surprisingly, like the elite class, they actually had money in dollars.
Right.
So I know you are, you've been written about the dollarization and then venization of the North Korean economy. If the regime successfully forces people back to the North Korean yuan, what does that to the loyalty of the Pyongyang elites who hold their wealth in foreign currency?
Yeah, on the one hand, it makes them even more wealthy because they have dollars.
Yes.
And dollars are getting more and more worth more and more won, right? 36,000 of them won. So I think this process has created a very rich elite. The elite love dollars and they can have dollars. It's risky because in theory, the government can take them away. It's illegal, so they can take them away.
Yeah.
But the reality is everybody has dollars. Even school teachers probably have $100 bill in their wallet.
That's correct.
Right? Everybody has now, and this is not the case 10 years ago, not even 5 years. Since you've been here, it's probably much more use of US dollars and Chinese money, which is effectively the same thing, hard currency. And more. So it's what we call partial dollarization. In other words, there's yuan floating around, circulating. There's U.S. dollars floating around, and there's Chinese money floating around. Three different currencies in wide circulation. So this is tremendously difficult for the central bank, the Chosun Bank, to deal with. How do you deal with dollars? They can't produce dollars. To get dollars, they have to export. Well, they're not exporting very much at all, partly because of the sanctions, but that's not the only reason. And everybody wants to use dollars, and they can't make it. So they're in a big, big difficulty there with the. I would argue they should basically probably accept the dollar system. You can do that through a currency board, like Hong Kong, where you have a North Korean currency, but it's 100% backed
by dollars.
And everybody knows that, and they work it that way. So then you get confidence in the North Korean won because you know it's 100%. So that would be one solution in the future. I wouldn't doubt that it might go that way.
I see. That's a good idea. Yeah. Actually, when I back to North Korea while I was studying in China or to trade in China, I never spent a North Korean yuan. I never purchased a North Korean yuan. Even like in the market or like in the restaurants, you can easily spend in dollar bills. And also they credit card type, the card. And then you can deposit in dollars and then spend on dollars. So actually North Korean people in Pyongyang, they never less chance to use the real currency, North Korean currency.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Now North Korea is partially dollarization.
See, the importance of that is it takes away the ability to create a monetary system is one of the most powerful instruments any state has, if you think of it. They can demand how people use their money. And certainly we do, all the West does, everybody does, except North Korea. And a few countries where they're dollarized. Then, so it's so ironic. It's so much irony here. Here we call it a very centralized, state-controlled country, right? And it is. But and it's a socialist, communist country. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And yet here they use U.S. dollars in a very capitalistic way, and the government has no control over it. So
no.
It's a long answer to your good question, but I think the state has basically lost ability to control the money. And now they're allowing it to be used. The good thing for the country, though, that this decentralization as it occurs, away from the plan, away from their rations, allowing people to use money, it creates all kinds of business between people. So people are interchanging business. And they make money. They make profit or they lose money, whatever. That creates a huge productivity increase. So I think the economy is probably growing based on that. But the state economy is shrinking. So
Absolutely.
we get this very dangerous situation for the regime. The private economy is really their rival, and their economy is shrinking. It's trouble, big trouble for Kim Jong-un.
I see. Do you think eventually the people's economy will, dominate the overall government economy?
Yeah. Now there's, I don't know if he's listening or not, but if Kim Jong-un were listening to me, he would say, "Well, what can I do? What can I do?" I have the answer. The answer is, so Mr. Kim, Chairman Kim, President Kim, whatever we call you, your government, for hook or crook, mostly crook, because you stole it. But you stole it 50 years ago, 70 years ago, you stole it. You stole all the property of the country. You stole all the land, all the capital, all the factories, everything. Your government owns the country. The solution for you is to start selling it. start
Selling to whom?
liquidating your property. And I mean not to foreigners. You don't have to internally sell it to North Koreans. That way you get the money back.
That's correct. Yeah.
You sell a piece of land, you sell a factory, you get the money back, use the money to pay workers a little bit more. The workers in this private sector that bought the factory will be much more productive. So your GDP will increase. You might even get more money from taxes than you were getting before. So your government will be much more solvent.
But you know, North Korea is a tax-free country. They don't.
Can't
They
tax.
did.
There are other ways to create fees.
Yeah, and also
what his bosses would say. I think he has bosses all over.
Yeah, he's the
his
ultimate
bosses,
boss.
His elites, whatever, would say, no, that's capitalism.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So that's my answer. You got to move, not completely. You don't have to sell everything, but just start selling pieces. You know, this is what China has been doing for 30 years.
Yeah, that's how China developed the economy. The local government, they sold the properties, you know, to the business people, and that's how they made, you know, the local government funding, the budget. But now it's, you know, decreasing.
Yeah. So now they've sold all their property. Now what do? They still have too much government. So while you're doing that, you have to reduce the size of the government. China hasn't done that. They just gave it to the provinces.
No. Another problem for that, I wouldn't say problem, but that the current North Korean system doesn't allow to, you know, to purchase any government property because, you know, under the North Korea constitution or rule, other than your basic salary by the government, all your earning is illegal earning. So even though government say we want to sell the property to you, and if some people want to buy them, and then government will ask you, how did you guys make money other than government salary? And you are all earned illegally. So the government basically can seize your whole asset. So, yeah.
But, you know, I go back to this 2015, I think. I think a real important set of speeches by Kim Jong-un to his finance people. They weren't initially publicized, but later they were published in the Norong Shinmun. And this new set of laws, and he was telling the bankers how to do banking. And it was so interesting because he says, you know, people don't put money in your bank. Why don't they put money in your bank? Well, they don't put money in your bank because you don't give it back. Give it back.
Of course.
You got to give it back. This is Kim Jong-un telling his banks, give the money back. So you put in a deposit, you got to be able to take it out. Back and forth, back and forth. Then he said, you know, you got to give interest. 10%.
Really? Did he say that?
He said you need to make interest, profits on that money. 5%, 10%, maybe, whatever. You need to encourage people to take their money and put it in the bank. That's how we recreate our banking system. And that's very true. That's very positive. His speech was the most positive thing I've seen out of North Korea in years and years. But
that should have been.
But 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago, nothing happened, right?
And I don't think nothing. I think some things have happened. As I say, they are paying workers much more money now. And I don't know what that's doing to the budget.
Basically, people lost the trust in government, the system. So, and even if Kim Jong-un mentioned, probably he has absolutely no idea about the North Korea's, you know, banking system or financial system. There is no commercial banks in North Korea. The banks doesn't operate as a commercial banks or investment bank. So the people cannot.
At the same time, they did create sort of commercial banks, like in China, and they compete a little. Each province, each district has another bank now, and they wanted them to compete a little bit. But I think the government, the state government, the central government, really couldn't afford it.
Mm.
So
No.
it just hasn't worked out. But the
Mhm,
idea
mhm.
coming from Kim Jong-un,
That's a positive,
so
absolutely.
positive,
Yeah.
it just hasn't followed through.
Mm.
It's very much like, and this is what I've been kind of preaching. My dad was a preacher, so I kind of preach. I preach it even to Park Geun-hye, remember, President of Korea, Park Geun-hye.
Yep.
Favorite of mine. I liked her a lot. So
She's a good person. Yeah.
before she was president, I had a chance to talk to her about
Mhm.
North Korea. She was going to meet, thought she was, and I think she did. She met Kim Jong-il, I think.
No, she hasn't met anyone.
Oh, she did.
Maybe she was. Oh, I don't remember. She exactly met somebody from North Korea.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, all the the left presidents met
Yeah,
Kim family members. Yeah.
But anyway, I talked to her quite at length. I said, if you get a chance to talk to Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un,
Mhm.
um, tell him he should follow exactly the policies of my father, Park Chung-hee.
Park Chung-hee. Yes.
Now, you might not like Park Chung-hee because he's president for life. He wasn't a good Democrat. He
Mhm.
made some big mistakes toward the end. But the one thing I love about Park Chung-hee, in 1964, I think,
Mhm.
he
Mhm.
completely revolutionized South Korean money and banking system. Completely turned it over.
Mhm. Mhm.
For your older people there, you might remember the Hwan, W-H, Hwan money. Hwan.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I was growing up,
Yep.
we used Hwan. Hwan
Mhm.
was terrible. It was
Oh.
inflated away, just like
Mhm.
North Korean won. It was terrible
Mhm.
currency. But Park Chung-hee
Yep.
put in a set of reforms. He knocked off a couple zeros. We had to go run to the bank and change our money for won instead of Hwan.
Mhm. Mhm.
And biggest thing is he ordered the banks to offer 20% interest.
Mm.
Put money in the bank, you get 20%
Interesting.
back. Well, people didn't trust the money, but
Mhm.
20%, that's pretty good. So
Yeah.
you start putting money, I get money
Let
back.
me try.
Kind of good. And then if you want to borrow money,
Uh-huh.
wow, 25%? Oh, no, you're not going to borrow money. So the bank wouldn't lend money unless it was for a tractor, something that would be productive.
Oh,
No borrowing for weddings and funerals. Sorry.
I see.
They're dead
I
people
see.
they can't pay back. But you want to buy a tractor? Yeah, well, loan money for a tractor. And the profit on the tractor, you kill the cow, poor cow. But with a tractor, you get you don't have to feed it. So you get a huge profit from the little tractors,
Mm-hmm.
And
The
from that
efficiency
day
increase
on, Korea's economy has just
to grow.
boomed.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of that. Not just, but that was the main thing. So this is what you need to tell the North Koreans.
That's correct. That's
You
correct.
can do that. You can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Kim Jong-un should listen to your advice and follow the Park Chung-hee, the model.
Yeah.
And I personally believe President Park is the great leader, incredible leader. He laid the foundation for Korea's economy now, and he built, basically industry all over the Korea.
Yeah.
So yeah, and slightly going back to North Korea, we've mentioned about North Korea's now like economy and then streets in Pyongyang, and people are watching and reading the newspaper that the like flash side of North Korea, like in a bright side of North Korea. Even we see new apartments in Pyongyang and talk about modernization in Kim's speech. From your perspective, is this actual economic growth or is it just, Potemkin modernization, recycling limited capital for optics while industry base continues to rust?
Yeah, it is kind of amazing looking at pictures of Pyongyang and all the big
Yep.
buildings, nice looking buildings. From the outside,
Mhm.
they're very nice looking. Although, even in South Korea, when we looked at Seoul getting bigger buildings. We always wondered what was inside them,
Yes.
And it turns out you big building, no air conditioning. What?
Uh-huh.
Well, the elevators work some of the time. But anyway, that was in South Korea. In North Korea, a couple of thoughts. One is, technology keeps improving worldwide. So cell phones, especially electronic stuff. So the level of economic development worldwide is rising, right, with this technology. So, and a lot of the technology allows you to build bigger buildings, quicker, faster, cheaper. So that's one thing that's going on, is that North Korea naturally will develop with the rest of the world, and if they don't kill it. The other thing, though, is much more negative, and it's what you see in China. With a state system where markets don't work, they want to develop. They want GDP to rise. So the state pours money into buildings, into investment. The problem is they don't have a price system. So in a market economy, you build one building and you get money, and you build another and build. But each time you build another building or build it taller, the marginal return is less because you already have another building. Why do you have another one? So in a socialist economy, the price never changes. So if you build another car, build another factory, you keep getting more and more and more. You think you're getting more and more and more. The result of that, plus you have all these workers who know how to build buildings. All the soldiers, they know how to build a building. They're good at it. So yeah, keep them going. They keep building buildings. The problem for that is they build way too many buildings, and they have no idea of the cost. They need houses. They don't need 40-story buildings. But the house, we don't know how to make a house. We can build a 40-story building. So the provinces are poor as can be, and the city has these big, huge buildings that look nice from the outside, but the water supply, I wonder, would you want to live in a 40-story building in North Korea, in Pyongyang? I would be worried the toilet wouldn't work. Then what would happen, right? You have to walk all the way down. Elevator doesn't work. I don't think people are going to want to live in those 40-story buildings. But they look
You made
nice.
a great point.
And, to a degree, they are nice. So I don't mean to downplay them, but it's predictable in a socialist economy that you just keep building the same thing you did before. And the result of that in a market economy is the profit from each one you build is less and less and less.
Yeah.
The marginal development works against you.
Yeah, you made a great point. And even like when we were in North Korea, we had 100,000, the housing built by Kim Jong-il in 1990s, 80s, 2000. We had skyrocket buildings, and people couldn't get the water, because of no power. The water, cannot have a pressure to up to the, buildings. So even like we had only 1 hour per day to have a water system, we couldn't imagine the warm water, hot water. We don't have. It's only cold water. And also people built a tanks in the bathroom to get the water to reserve.
Yeah.
And think about the elevator. You don't even dream about the elevator. It's luck when you get the elevator. So people made a joke that, here people are making, doing diet, healthy diet. North Koreans everyday diet, walk
40
upstairs. Yeah. And then was a really terrible experience. And if people have no a public regular transportation, so everybody is driving the bicycles. And then think about that, you're living in 30 floor, 40 floor, you have to bring your bicycles every day, and you don't need a gym that
Don't need a gym.
yeah, you don't need the gym for that. So it's very natural, muscle building and then exercise. It's very sad story, but it's I totally agree. It's nice looking outside, but internally have a lot of problems. And the government doesn't consider cost of the building, and it distributes the people, and people doesn't know what the cost of the building is. And later, if things happen like errors and difficulties of maintenance, and nobody cares about that. Yeah. So this is the failure of the governing and then policy, economic policy. And I trying to shift a point of view here that is trying to ask a question, economy and the nuclear. So from an economist point of view, North Korea is spending a massive percentage of GDP on nuclear or weapon programs. At what point does the opportunity cost of the nuclear program become a threat to regime's internal stability? Is there a breaking point?
Yeah, so this is a really great, very important question, because the world obviously doesn't like North Korea having nuclear weapons, but the regime thinks they need them for defense, maybe for offense, but first of all for defense. And if they look at U.S. power, they want to have nuclear weapons. Now, they might look a little more carefully and see that their own nuclear weapons make them a target, which I think they are. I think they're a big target. And they might look a little more carefully at the Soviet Union. Soviet Union had more nuclear weapons, I think, than us, and they fell apart. How many nuclear weapons did they use to try to save Gorbachev? Zero. Nuclear weapons are not very useful for internal stability. And then you look at Iran and Saul and Libya and all these places. Basic thing is it makes them a target. Now, I think in a way their socialist systems wants to be a target. They don't want to open up. And so if they have this secure border, nobody wants to be, but we're not stupid. We're not going to attack them because they do have nuclear weapons. So it does create a defensive border for them. But that border is like a casket. People can't come in and out. They just cook inside it. And very, very costly. One thing is the weapons themselves are costly, but think of all the troops they need to protect them. Make sure that one doesn't go off at Kim Il-sung Museum, right?
Yeah.
He must worry all the time of a loose nuke inside North Korea. So they have tens of thousands of soldiers guarding the weapons, guarding the missiles, guarding. So it's basically all these guards. They're not soldiers that can go abroad and attack, maybe a little bit Ukraine, but mostly they're a police force to protect their weapons, protect their regime. Very, very costly. Now, ideally, and this is what they say, but it hasn't turned out very well, if they have a good defense with nuclear weapons, they don't need to have so much conventional weaponry, and they can have fewer soldiers, which may be true, and they may have reduced the number of soldiers. That would be a very good thing. They talked a few years ago about reducing 10% or reducing the age limit, reducing, say, 8 years instead of 10 years in the military. Well, that would be good, and that would be a payoff for the nuclear weapons, I suppose. But I think the danger to North Korea is not external. Who would, frankly, other than maybe some people in South Korea, who would want to attack North Korea? Nobody,
No one. Yeah.
No one. If anybody wants to attack North Korea, it might be China. It might be Russia. Get their money back. It's not going to be U.S. The only reason we would attack them is if we were afraid they were going to attack us. So there should be an easy solution. We won't attack you. You won't attack us. We'll put in intelligence to make sure that's not going to happen. So we
But
need
Professor,
to,
the audience might ask, why China and Russia might attack North Korea, as they are allies of North Korea.
No, I don't think they're allies.
That's
you go back,
superficially allied.
you go back thousands of years. You know,
That's
why,
correct.
why would people in China want to ally themselves with people in North Korea?
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
they're neighbors. Neighbors mean they fight each other.
Yeah, conflict, territory
Neighbors
conflict.
are usually not so friendly, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're allies if they see a common threat.
Hmm.
And if they see the U.S. as a common threat, yeah, they will ally against that threat. But even then, do you think China would come to North Korean aid if there's an attack in Taiwan? No, they're going to have to worry about Taiwan.
Uh-huh.
The last thing they're going to worry about, So in Russia, the same way. Russia is way too conflicted in Ukraine.
Hmm.
Well, they might give it, and Russia doesn't like to give anybody anything, They trade a little bit with North Korea, not very much. They buy maybe a lot of these missiles or artillery pieces. That's helping North Korea, no question. But I don't think it's a long-standing thing. And Putin could change his mind or die tomorrow. Likely, it seems like. Then what happens? Suddenly, Russia is a friend of the West instead of a friend of North Korea. Wow,
Yeah.
that would. So if you're a North Korean, I don't think you can count on Russia and China.
So you think it's more transactional relationship,
yeah.
rather
But
than
today we can make some deal, yeah. Next year, maybe 10 years from now, they're more likely to be.
So in the past, we called China is lifeline of North Korea. Now it looks like Russia is, acting as a lifeline currently. So now, do you believe that Kim Jong-un is playing with China and Russia, between China and Russia, or what's the overall strategy by Kim's side?
Yeah, the balance of power people, the political people, always like to talk about this. I tend to be kind of skeptical. Now, Korea has done over its centuries. Korea has done pretty well sort of balancing other countries' interests. Japan, China, Russia, even America or Soviet Union, balancing. But it's kind of pretense, as if, everybody wants Korea.
You mean north or south?
Don't get me wrong. I love Korea. I love Koreans. But I don't think everybody wants Korea, They don't want Korea to be an enemy. They don't. They mostly don't want Korea to be on the other guy's side. So Japan doesn't want Korea to be on China's side. Right. So same for all of them, all the way around. So the best solution, there are two solutions. One is for Korea to be independent, but powerfully independent, so that nobody else will want to take over. That was the problem in the Yi dynasty. Korea was kind of independent, but it was so weak. China would come in, Japan would come in, Russia would come in, and it made it volatile. So if Korea is going to be unified, it needs to be strong enough to keep the other guys out. Not strong, not too strong to be a threat. But Korea is never going to be a threat to China or to Russia or even to Japan. It's just not they don't want to be a threat, and they're not likely to be. So there should be an easy solution. Unfortunately, we haven't come up with that yet.
But some people genuinely believe that unified Korea could be a threat to Japan, China and Russia. And, others speculate that people don't want to see the increased power of Korean Peninsula like that. But, I totally understand your point that this is related to unification. So the so-called unification bill, because of the so much, the bill will be, offered. So even like South Korean young people don't want a unification. And what's your assessment on that? like do South Korean young people should really worry about the unification cost or more benefit out of unification?
Yeah, I like you saying cost rather than bill. I'm Bill.
I mentioned about the bill initially. I saw it like, oh.
Yeah. So again, for years we've had these discussions of the quote cost of unification.
Mm-hmm.
And a good friend of mine, Marcus Nolan, wrote a book on cost of unification.
Mm-hmm.
I've always kind of quarreled with that idea.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a huge cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the South Korean young people are correct in worrying about the cost of unification.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that's the cost of a bad unification, a unification that will destroy South Korea and North Korea. A much better way of thinking, and the idea is so South Korea is 50 times more rich than North Korea. So to unify, you have to get them even. So you have to give a lot of money to North Korea to give them even. And that's going to cost me, I'm going to have to give a lot of money to North Korea to get it even. That's kind of the basic idea. I say, no, that's the wrong idea. Go back to my idea that the North Korean state owns all of North Korea. In that way, the North Korean state could be very, very wealthy. The resources of North Korea are huge. And when I say resources, I mean, and the capital. What? How could they have? Well, human capital is a big part of capital. North Koreans are all educated to the degree that they can read and write. It's a very poor country, but it's not like Sudan or, where people can't read or write. Everybody knows to read or write.
I agree. They're well educated.
That's the most important element of human capital is read and write. And North Korea has it.
Yep.
Maybe better than us, and physical capital, factories. They have a lot of factories. Why? Because their system pours money into building more factories.
That's correct.
Their natural resources are huge. Look at their zinc, for example. Zinc now is in huge demand worldwide.
Yeah.
They are one of the world's largest deposits of zinc and other non-ferrous metals. Huge. These, quote, rare earths, they've got them. They've got uranium. They've got all this stuff.
Yeah.
And for Asia, not many people per acre. It's likely, South Korea's population density is 2 times. So a North Korean, on average, has twice as much property.
That's correct.
As a South Korean. So no, they're not poor in resources. And the worst thing to think of is dumping resources into North Korea. That's the wrong idea. They'll just waste them. North Korea is poor for one reason.
Government policy.
Productivity. Productivity of all those resources is, I would argue, the worst in the world. The farmers, they work hard, but there are too many of them. There's not enough land for them. Their state system dictates what they produce. Yeah. Not enough fertilizer, not enough this. You do this. So they're not energetic. They do the wrong things. They grow the wrong things. There should be half as many farmers. Half the farmers should leave the farm and go work making something for exporting. So it's a matter of productivity. And why is productivity weak? I would argue it's a lack of ownership.
Yep.
People don't own the capital. The state owns the capital.
That's correct.
So a unified Korea, hopefully, and even now, this is what I would be saying, preaching as my dad would be. Let's make sure that the North Koreans understand that with unification, you, Mr. Kim, Mr. Lee, Mr. Park, you will own North Korea. You will own property in North Korea. Maybe a little bit more. And you can gain from that property. You can earn money. You can trade it. Before you know it, you will be more rich than South Korea.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. Yeah, but so like young people in South Korea has less information or education on what benefit they will get if there's unification.
Yeah.
So only like downside is emphasize it, but there is no bright side for them. So that's why I think they believe that they would cost there will be more costs and the burden on them,
Yeah,
and yeah.
the sad thing is they might be right, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced the South Korean government,
Mm-hmm.
liberal or conservative, don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure they have the right idea of how to encourage North Korean economic development. Maybe,
Mm.
hopefully, but I'm not sure. If I were a South
That
Korean young person,
that's
I
good
would
point.
worry
That's
about
good point.
my own government.
Yeah, I don't see any economic development designed by South Korea. Like I don't. I believe I had to talk with some South Korean people, business and government people in the past, and then they only thought that the South Korea will rule the North Korea,
Mhm.
and then they said that they want to invest infrastructure like that. But as you mentioned earlier, and I also had the same idea that there might be a resistance against this rule, and there might be a people have will not be satisfy the entire rule of investment from South Korea. So there might be either there should be some like transition period or just a mutual discussion on the process. So um, the capitals and resources should be properly managed and then developed. As mentioned earlier, North Korea has abundant the natural resources and also rare earth. It is the value will be increasing, right? So now the rare earths is now really becoming rare. So now North Korea has some advantages. But one question I want to ask more about this. Now, like the robots AI developed, and people are arguing that North Korea's human, the manpower capital is less important than in the back to like 5 or 10 years ago. Now when we believe that North Korea had the advantage of manpower, but now it's like, oh, we do have robots. So what
Robots.
do you think of? Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that North
Hmm.
Korea would have an. I mean, in some things, yeah,
Hmm. Some sense, yeah.
they need robots, and like in mining, perhaps I can
Mm-hmm.
quite understand. So, like a zinc mine or copper mine or whatever, they have a lot of that. So
Yeah.
I can imagine robots would be very helpful
Yep.
in that kind of work. Um,
Yeah, but I agree. Like the especially you mentioned about the productivity, and
yeah,
it will help the productivity.
yeah. But the
So,
the trick is they need capital. You need people to invest in it, and
mhm.
I wouldn't trust the government to invest. They'll make a robot, but they'll make 1,000 of the exact same robots.
I see. Yeah, but listening only to the government. I see. So, this will be the last question, and then, many others argue for maximum pressure via sanctions. As someone who analyzed the flow of goods and money, do you believe the current sanction regime is actually stopping the regime of the resources, or has the North Korea economy become immune through sophisticated evasion and China Russia complexity?
Yeah, the sanctions, of course, is a very complicated
Uh-huh.
issue, and I do agree we should sanction things we don't
Mm-hmm.
like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Punish things we don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and nuclear weapons, nuc, um, um, high technology weapons in North Korea, we should
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not allow exports
Mm-hmm.
to those industries. Sanctions is fine, and the whole UN agreed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Put sanctions on those kind of things. Overall, though, economic sanctions um, usually don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't work for a number of reasons. One is in our sanctions, I'm very critical. I've become very critical of them. We went from just sanctioning nuclear stuff to sanctioning everything. So, for example, North Korea can't sell zinc to the U.S. because they're sanctioned.
Yeah.
Well, we need zinc. They have zinc. Why don't we trade? Sanctions. No. Well, why? Because the money then goes to the government. They'll build, build nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons and weapons.
Everything gets sort of goes into the nuclear weapons bucket.
Yep.
There is a reason for trade actions, not necessarily sanctions. By trade actions, I mean tariffs. So should we have tariffs on North Korea? Yes, like we do on everybody else. And even more on North Korea because it's not a market economy.
Yep.
If it were a market economy, you should be treated MFN, like the world, no sanctions. Then we could expect zinc to come and trade it. Everybody makes money. It's great. But in the current situation in North Korea, without enough reforms, without joining the WTO, with their slave labor system, they mine zinc with slave labor.
That's correct.
So that's they can sell zinc very cheaply because they use slaves to produce the zinc.
Yeah.
Well, that's inefficient for everybody. All right, it's terrible. So until North Korea adopts more of a stronger market system where workers are paid money, not rations, that's the key. Workers need to pay real wages, competitive wages. If North Korean workers are paid competitive wages, I would say no, they should have the same tariff as South Korea. So I think we could now, I would hope, the government is thinking about it, is going to North Korea and say, we can remove a lot of our tariffs. We have huge tariffs on North Korea. So let's reduce those tariffs if you move to market wages. Well, how can we? Well, zinc you can make a lot of money from. So if you're going to export zinc to us, we demand that you pay your miners, $30 a day, whatever that should be. We will not buy your zinc. We might buy your zinc, but we'll have a 200% tariff on it if you continue to use slave labor. So I
go
think
ahead.
There's ways to, a sanction should be a tool.
Yep.
And a tool,
absolutely.
You work the tool. We in our government, we put on a sanction and it just stays there. It's like, it's not a very good tool.
Great. Agree. I have one question regarding the trade, the tariffs on North Korea. Do we actually have trade between United States and North Korea?
Not now. No, it's all sanctions.
I see.
In the past, there's been a little bit. But
what was the items?
There's been some beer and some commodity stuff, and
I see.
I think, and we've sold them some grain. I think the problem ever since the Korean War, we put on a Trade with the Enemy Act.
Oh,
and that has very restrictive trade. So we've not really traded with North Korea since the Korean War, even before that. And investment even worse. So there's no U.S. investment in North Korea. There was, funny, in the Japanese era, there was U.S. invested all over in North Korea. A U.S. company had a gold mine in North Korea. But that was all taken away by the communist government.
Oh, I never heard the U.S. invested in North Korea during the Japanese colonial period. I thought it's all run by Japanese companies.
Well, the Japanese companies were, pretty international then. And they there was U.S. gold investment. They would borrow this before World War II, before the war. The Japanese did invest a lot in North Korea, but a lot of it was U.S. technology. And U.S. companies were heavily involved in North Korea.
Yeah, Japan invested heavily in North Korea, like before, like the 1950 Korean War, and basically North Korea's industrial development was based on the Japan's investment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And lastly, Professor, we heard your comments, the advice you want to make to Kim Jong Un. But what's your last, advice to President Trump on North Korea?
I liked. If I'm speaking to Mr. President, I say I like your adventurous ideas to summit with Kim Jong Un. I wrote about it at the time. I thought that was a great idea. It's really too bad they didn't work out. They didn't work out. And I think part of the problem was we asked for the wrong things. Or we were sort of an American idea, like South Korean idea. They need our stuff. They need our investment. So we offered a lot of investment. But, in a Trump Tower or this, or whatever. If I'm speaking as a Korean, somebody who knows Korea, I say Koreans really don't like foreign investment. They want to own their own companies.
I see.
So in the whole world, Japan is the same way. You have companies like Samsung and Toyota, name brand Korean companies that you're very proud of. But the North Koreans don't like Samsung. They want Kumgangsan, right? Something like that. They want their company. So their companies grow by borrowing. So Korea is hugely in debt because it borrows. That's a problem. They should have more foreign investment. But North Korea, if you tell them we're going to invest in your country, they're going to think, oh, you're going to own our country. And that's the most scary thought for them. The scary thought in Pyongyang would be Samsung owning the Kimchek steel mill. Big factories. No,
I thought Mitsubishi would be interested in, having those steel mills.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. But I'm just thinking you have to develop very carefully what you want to deal with North Korea. Make a deal with them, certainly. Go talk to them. Make a deal. But the deal should first listen to what they want. It's not nuclear. No, nothing nuclear. But an example might be tourism. Kim Jong-un has always favored a lot of tourism.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes a lot of sense, economic sense. It's a beautiful country. You have rich Japanese, rich South Koreans, rich Chinese, not so rich Russians.
Rich Koreans.
They all want, rich South Koreans, certainly.
Yeah.
They all want to go to North Korea. I went to North Korea. I'd go to North Korea. And they have, if they can develop their tourism industry, they can. The good thing about tourism is it's labor intensive. It pays workers. People get tips. Give them tips.
Yep.
It's ground based, up, not top down, like a steel mill top. It's ground based. So, and Kim Jong-un wants it. He really wants it. So Trump could say, we will relax our restrictions on tourism. We will allow Americans to go to your big resort. And some would go. Little things like that. It's not little, it's actually pretty big. But offer Kim things he can't refuse. How could he say no to tourism when he's made such a big deal out of tourism?
Absolutely.
So you got him right where you want him, right? He wants something. It's okay for us. It's actually good for us, I think, to have Americans in North Korea giving tips. So anyway, that's kind of my suggestion.
Great. I totally agree. We need to think about more practical way. And, but the one thing is there's no tip culture in North Korea. So anyway, Professor Brown, thank you so much for your insightful.
I think I beg pardon. I think they do tip their policemen.
We call it bribery. Thank you for your time, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
And then for those watching, you can find more or Professor Brown's deep dive analysis at naeia.com. It's
That's right.
Professor's blog and company LLC. So
And also
Professor,
I
Mhm.
publish on KEIA, Korea Economic
Yeah,
Institute of America,
Institute.
Peninsula
Yeah,
blog.
absolutely.
I have an
I
article
will leave.
on.
Yeah, I will leave the link on the description there. So, Professor, it's an absolute honor. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, and good work for you. Yeah,
Thank you.
and your parents and your family too.